So I'm here today to talk a bit about some work we've been doing here at Southwest Research Institute in microsegmenting core flight software. I wanted to start off talking a bit about the need for aerospace cybersecurity, which is our motivation for pursuing this research and how it ties into zero trust architecture. So one example of why we need this is one of the biggest examples is the Viasat hack that happened right at the start of the Ukraine conflict a few years back. This is something that brought a lot more attention onto the need for space cybersecurity, and not just at the ground level, but also with actual in-space assets. And this coordinated cyber attack exploited a weakness in the network management to wipe router firmware and cause denial of service on the Viasat satellites, and causing an internet outage over the Eastern Europe region. So this is just one example of why we need more security with space assets. And so we need to transition over to more secure space assets. So a transitional security architecture should provide a smooth transition for developers. So we wanted to build a architecture that could support existing flight software and be able to run on flight rated hardware. So rather than having to build a brand new set of hardware from scratch or write a brand new set of software from scratch, we wanted something that could use these existing tools that our developers are familiar with, and also have something that provides a strong security baseline by default, with some opportunities to expand it further. So we have a high-level diagram here of our approach here for microsegmenting. I'll get into this a bit further. First, I wanted to provide some definitions and also describe the rationale behind this. So zero trust architecture is something that is being more and more in demand from the federal government level. And in essence, it means you're never trusting and always verifying. On the right here, I have a diagram from the CISA Zero Trust Maturity Model about 5 pillars of zero trust. And we've been working on the zero trust architecture to help meet the needs of these pillars. Another common definition you'll hear around is defense in depth, which means you're using multiple layers of security and not just one. A couple tools that we use in this, which many of you may be familiar with if you work a lot in flight software, core flight software, is widely adopted framework for spacecraft flight software put out by NASA. There's also SCO4, which is a formally verified microkernel. You can also use it to act as the hypervisor to securely provide communications between virtual machines. We also use the tool MicroKit, which is a tool for accelerating development of SCO4, particularly in terms of using it as a hypervisor. Now, the traditional approach to security for space systems is based on perimeters. Essentially, you have a clear internal and external boundary. Once you're in the system, you have full access to the system. You're assuming some level of obscurity that since external communications may be difficult to initiate, that's your security layer there. And you may have some basic key management with hard-coded values in the software as well. And now, the problem with this perimeter-based approach is you're playing all or nothing game. There's a major risk of lateral movement by attackers if they're able to get control of the system once you get past that perimeter, as unfavorable odds over time. So in essence, even if you have a 1 in 1,000 chance of getting through that perimeter, once you do, you have a 100% chance of getting to the other components within the system. Now, zero trust architecture, it challenges this traditional perimeter-based concept, and it segments data flows to reduce cyber risk and eliminate implicit trust in favor of regular authentication across these components. And so that brings us to microsegmentation. So by segmenting all of these components and doing regular authentication between these subcomponents, we're able to secure each of these segments against even each other. So even if you can say have this 1 in 1,000 chance of compromising component A, but then they still have to be able to compromise components B and C on top of that. So let's look at a high level about our approach here. So some of the baseline security features in our architecture here, we have microsegmentation, which is going to be our big focus here. And what that means is each of our data flows, we're segmenting them from each other. We're doing this through these virtual machines being managed by Microkit and SCL4. This hypervisor also provides support for authentication, enforcing cyber policies, and monitoring for anomalous behavior. We used core flight software and real-time Linux because this is existing tools that a lot of flight software developers are familiar with, and we can reuse these and still provide a baseline security layer. It also runs off a processor with flight-ready variants. We use the ARM Cortex-A72 processor, which is a pretty commonly available processor today and can be flown in space right now. I also want to make a note here that we noticed that AFRL, they have a tool called cFS that they've worked on. It has some similar approaches to ours here. So that's just a little note there. So let's walk through a bit about our cFS configuration and our approach with microsegmentation. So in our example cFS system here, we have three general categories of data flows. We have guidance, navigation, and control. We have payload data flows and command and data handling data flows. In each of those, there's some specific types of data flows within those. So some of the special report ones, you have your payload storage, your data collection and processing, and instrumentation at the payload level, and then guidance, navigation, and control. That's managing the thruster or wheel activation, and command and data handling, which is handling all the command ingest and health and telemetry. And all of these data flows, they have communications with each other. So there's both intra and extra communications. So within these data flow segments that we've categorized, they have communications with each other and also with these other data flows. So extra level communications. And all of this together, we have three main operating modes that we were testing in our configuration. So we have maneuver, which is the nominal operating mode, has high level of GNC activity and minimal payload activity. So this is satellite maneuvering itself to get in position to do its science operations. Then we have the science operating mode. We have minimal GNC activity here and high payload activity. And this is doing collecting sensor data or doing other types of collecting of data, operating on the data. Then we also have a safe mode, which is the node we don't want to be in, which occurs if we have a communication breakdown between data flows. So if we're not receiving heart rate messages from a process, then we will go into a safe mode, which is just the waiting for a reset. And our way of defining whether this microsegmentation method is operational is if we're able to successfully complete our maneuver and science operations and also not fall back into safe mode. Now, at a high level, our science mode data flow, for example, we have command and data handling, payload, and GNC flows, each segmented from each other. The GNC flow is sort of just telling the data collection, hey, we're in science mode. Payload is waiting until ADS says it's in science mode and takes its images and then says it's done and then compresses the image, whereas CDNH is doing all the communication between these operations. And when the payload says it's done, it informs ADCS to go into the nominal maneuver mode. So we had our example operations of maneuvers and science that we were running in the system. I also want to talk a bit about how we were separating these off at the kernel level. So Microkit is a tool that enables faster hypervisor development in SCL4. It abstracts away some of the processes you have to do for setting up a hypervisor in SCL4. So rather than having to write the device drivers for your processor and the components on your board, it helps simplify that by providing some of that for you and also providing you tools to accelerate any type of development you may need to get the VMM working with other tools or other drivers up and running. It helps handle that VMM setup. And so essentially we have in this baseline example, 3 VM managers running, that the VM managers manage the operations within the Linux VMs and to the communication to other VMs. We have a message broker that is communicating to these VMs in order to pass data along, and so only operations from one VM to another are only allowed if they have the permissions set up to do so, and only if they can authenticate that their messaging is valid, that they're a valid data flow accessing data flow it needs to access. And the message broker handles doing the encryption and authentication between these segments. So to benchmark the performance of microsegmentation, we had two methods here. We had a monolithic kernel, which is just separating via different cFS processes, communicating over UDP to each other. And then we have our microkit, which is having that message broker handle communications between VMMs, which contain the cFS processes. We compared the impact between these two when running our baseline data flow and measured the latency and CPU utilization and runtime. And we noticed that actually the difference between having the monolithic kernel and microkit was more impacted, didn't have as much of an impact as the latency between cFS apps themselves did. And so we were able to get through our data flows without having to fall back into safe mode and have a good average runtime and pretty low CPU utilization, less than 1% in most cases here. So the main trade-off of all of this is that it's going to demand a higher resource platform. So the ARM Core A72, it's not the lowest level processor out there. Even then, on top of that, when you consider encryption, depending on the type of encryption you do, it can be pretty resource intensive. So if you're using asymmetric encryption, for example, versus symmetric, you're going to need some additional hardware. You may need to have some FPGA cores to handle this key storage and access. And each of these containers, it takes up its own RAM, its own thread. So depending on how much segmentation you may need for your process, without some additional customizations on top of what microkit provides, you need to consider your RAM and thread usage. There is also the increased message latency by segmenting cFS into different processes, which is also a potential use case for FPGA acceleration. And as an example of some research we've done in the past on hardware level acceleration with RSA, with the RTG4 FPGA, it had 63% utilization of the FPGA, which is not acceptable if you want to use the FPGA for anything besides your crypto acceleration. But as an example with the Core Flyer, we only have 3% utilization. So this is going to be something that is going to need somewhat to assess whether the FPGA is available on your system or would be appropriate for doing higher level acceleration, or if you need to take a lower demand approach for your encryption needs. I want to make some acknowledgements here. So Mark, Kisa, James, and Patrick, they did a lot of work on this project, and were great contributors here. I also wanted to give a quick shout out here. The IEEE AESS, my boss, Vic Murray, is the cyber security panel lead, and there's a collaboration across 3 AES panels on a challenge problem for cyber resilient avionics with federated AI. They're going to give out 4 grand awards of $25K each, so you can reach out to one of these people over email if that's something you'd like to submit a challenge problem to. Tentative due date, this is April 15th. So we can move on to questions now.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a question here. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Is your access control limited to just possession of key material, or does it include things like attestation of software images and things like that more complicated?
Sorry, the volume is a little low. Could you repeat that second half there?
Is your access control in the scheme limited to simply possession of a private key, or is it something more complex like attestation of specific software images or things like that?
So it's not just key authentication. It is also, so each of these data flows within the message broker, they have their own permissions set up for the data flow. So data flows only have even if they have a valid key in their message, only have the authorization to read or write from the data flows they have permissions to access to. So we have this least privilege access control set up through MicroKit's configurations for the hypervisor. So, yeah.
Dylan, go ahead, please.
Excellent. Do you guys have a roadmap about how you might want to try to stage this out on real experiments on mission? Vision of how you want to get it moving into flight?
Yeah, that's absolutely something we want to do. We are, so the way we at Southwest Research Institute work, we're all external contract funded. We don't have products we sell necessarily. So we're assessing current and future projects that we're either working on or putting in bids for, and helping meet the needs for zero trust architectures within these projects. And so our roadmap to speak would be to apply this towards our future projects, and that's what I can say right now about that. So.
All right, very good. We have a couple of online questions. We still have time. Would the push for post-quantum encryption methods accelerated in Fabric affect your usage result, or were those considered in your usage benchmarking?
Yeah, so post-quantum encryption, obviously it's a need. It's not an optional thing at this point. We need to be moving to post-quantum encryption. And that's something so that would not impact the microsegmentation measurements, but it would impact the overhead of the encryption. And so we do have research going on at the Institute about assessing post-quantum encryption on the same processor. And while there are some models that encryption algorithms that are post-quantum that were able to operate with a steady state, I guess, within that architecture. That's something that not all of them are, and so that's going to be depending on the type of algorithm you're using and depending on the type of hardware you're using, whether that is going to be doable with this architecture.
All right, thank you. One last question. Is it possible to use non-Linux container like bare metal or Artemis on SWRI?
Yes, you can. So it's not just a Linux. It is so SEO4. It has the support is based on the type of processor architecture. So they have RISC-V x86 and ARM support right now, and so you would have so there's varying support for different types of operating systems, but as long as the operating system is communicating to one of those types of architectures, and then it is possible to do. There may be varying levels of external driver support existing for SEL4. So Linux is the one that has the most support with MicroKit right now, but it is possible to do other operating systems, and in fact there are the examples of people using other operating systems besides just your standard Linux for having a secure flight software platform. So it is doable.
Very good, thank you. I think that's it for questions. Thank you so much, Henry.
Thank you.